Would you like to get your hands on a free copy of our brand new Enlightened book? It's 150 plus pages. It's a digital book that could potentially transform your life. Make sure to listen after this interview to find out the details for how you can grab a free copy today.
Hi everyone, this is Shelly, aka The Phoenix. Are you ready to be motivated, educated, entertained, and inspired? Well, you have come to the right place. Now get your pen and paper ready because you're listening to the newest episode of the Conversations with Passion radio show with your host, Corey Poirier.
So hello everybody, it is Corey Poirier and we're back with the Conversations with Passion radio show, and really excited to have best-selling author Sharon Lechter with us today, and excited to talk about financial literacy, to talk about finances, to talk about mentorship, and of course all the things that Sharon finds herself doing these days. So Sharon, without further ado, I think where I'd like to start, if it works for you, is to give us a little bit of your backstory, only for our listeners who may be discovering you for the first time.
Well, thank you so much. I'm delighted to be back with you again. And for the listeners, I literally grew up in Florida and became an accountant, and at the ripe old age of 25, when we all think we know everything, realized that I was working so hard for someone else, I needed to become an entrepreneur. And so with that, I left public accounting, a very fast-paced, successful career, to go into the wonderful world of entrepreneurship. And it was really an incredible experience. I started, my first decision was a huge mistake, but out of every mistake comes a seed of an equal greater benefit, as Napoleon Hill said. And that's when I met my husband. So we've just celebrated 36 years of marriage. So sometimes we don't get the equal benefit to be too obvious initially, but I certainly am blessed with having my best friend and my husband of 36 years. And we went on. I met the inventor of the first talking book for children, so I helped grow that industry from 1987 to 1991 and really changed the way children read and changed bookstores because they were very quiet places back then. And then sold that company in 91, and that's when we moved to Arizona. And the following year, our son graduated from high school and went off to college and came home at Christmas in credit card debt. That was December of 1992, and that's really when I dedicated the rest of my life to financial literacy and financial education. Fast forward a few years, I wrote a little book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, started that company with my partner, and 10 years later, we'd written 15 books, multiple games, and really had a huge success, not because of us, I think, but because it was the right message at the right time. So we were blessed with success, but it was very important to me to stand in, my own personal mission. So 10 years into it, I made the decision to leave that company at the height of our success. And sometimes you have to close one door for other doors to open. So a few months later, I got a phone call from President Bush asking me to be on the President's Advisory Council for Financial Literacy, which was an incredibly huge honor. And so I did that for both President Bush and Obama. And a couple of months later, I got another phone call from Don Green of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, who asked me to step in and help reinvigorate the teachings of Napoleon Hill. So I've been very, very blessed to have participated in building the largest personal finance brand. And now I have the huge honor of helping support and grow the Napoleon Hill brand, the largest personal development brand. So I've written 22 best-selling books. The last 3 have been with the Napoleon Hill Foundation. And kind of brings me up to today. My company is Pay Your Family First, and I have the honor to travel the world speaking to people about financial education, financial literacy, and supporting them in creating success in their lives.
So, wow, Sharon, where to start after that? I mean, that's such an exciting journey. And one of the places that I'd like to ask you about, and I guess starting points, and this is more so before we jump into, I guess, the financial literacy side of things, because that's such an important area for so many people. But I guess, before we go there, I'd like to ask you, because I know our listeners are probably thinking this, and I get asked this a lot in terms of how do you secure certain interviews, or how do you get certain, as a speaker, how do I get certain bookings? So what I would ask you is, you mentioned getting those calls that sort of came at the right time, and those are some pretty big calls that you got. How did you kind of, let's say, brand yourself or put yourself out there or position yourself to be that person that got those calls? Like, what advice would you give for somebody who's saying, how do I get on the radar of people and get known as sort of an expert? Or, I mean, obviously you have to be an expert to get known as one, but, what is what does that look like, that journey, or is it just being in the right place at the right time?
Well, that's a great question, and I think it's very important. It's what I teach. I teach people how to not only be experts, because nobody else has walked in your shoes, so you're already the expert of your life, and then transforming that into becoming not just the expert, but the authority in your field. So you really begin by recognizing that you have a story to tell. And in today's environment, it's even easier to write a book, become an author. And as soon as you have a book, with the ability to do ebooks today, you can do a 30, 40-page ebook. I often tell people, in your business, you probably hear the same 5 questions from your customers. Write them down, write out the answers, give stories, examples, and all of a sudden you're going to have a book that you can market. You can actually sell it, or you can use it to attract new customers and clients. And it makes you the authority. It takes you from being just another one of these guys to the guy, the woman who has created and written the book on your subject matter. So it's very, very important to think about, again, you are responsible. As I say, you are the CEO of your own life. You are responsible for creating that. And once you have written a book, you have a tool that will allow you to reach out to the media. And a lot of it is making sure you get testimonials from people that you work with and having them refer you. The power of the word of mouth is very important. A lot of people will hire PR firms. That's never been as successful for me as just simply being out there and networking and being with people and having people come to me. And that's kind of when you've crossed that threshold, is when you start getting the phone calls for interviews and people want to interview you. But you have to establish the reason for them to call you. You have to become the authority, and that's always the first step.
Wow. So let me ask you, if you don't mind, Sharon, a follow-up question to that before I jump into the financial side, which so many people want to hear your insight on. But because one of the things I remember hearing about was Jack Canfield early on and we talked to him about this when we had him on the show, but I remember hearing about early on how he was doing something like 5 interviews a day, 6 interviews a day when the books were originally launched. And then you hear other people say, oh, I only take interviews if they're, on Good Morning America. So when you talked about sort of building that expert brand, do you think it's important to, look at unique ways to get in front of an audience rather than just maybe the big ways?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, once you become truly successful, you can be a little more selective about what kind of interviews you want to do. But I always tell people you need to get yourself out there. You need to get out there and you need to establish your expertise. So you want to get your name out as often and as you possibly can. And so I really recommend that people go for it and do whatever you can to get the interviews that you need and that you can reach by as many as possible. You never know. There are times when I will do a podcast interview and I will know that the individual that I'm being interviewed by is just getting started. And for me, it's a joy for me to be able to support somebody just launching in their career. It's a joy. And I want to support them in doing that. But at the same time, many times I'll get a call from people wanting me to come speak, and they heard me on something like that. I also tell speakers that start out doing their own events. Many times, you do your own event and you're expecting, 300 people, and all of a sudden you have 50 people in the room. And I go, rather than being depressed that you don't have 300, celebrate the fact that you have 50, because those 50 can turn into 500. The right people are always in the room. The right people are always listening. So I guess that would be my answer to you.
That's great advice, Sharon. So I promised that I would get into the money side of things because, again, I know so many people struggle with that. And, we hear about so many people living far beyond their means. So I think where I'd like to start is to ask you about save wisely and spend happily. So first of all, I'd like to ask you, what is that all about? Because that sounds so intriguing, the idea of, actually being able to spend happily. Because I think so many people, even if they are spenders, they spend, but at the same time they feel unhappy about it or miserable about it when they're doing it or after the fact.
Well, let me just add that we all like to spend money, right? All of us, we like to spend money. The issue is, are you in a position to spend it wisely? And if you can save appropriately, then you can spend happily. Because when you take care of creating financial freedom for yourself and your family, then you always have the opportunity to spend the money. We talk about live below your means or expand your means. I believe we live in a world of abundance, and so I think you expand your means. Find a way to increase your means so that you can have the life that you choose. And so many people feel the word budget is kind of negative. And so I say, well, instead of saying create a budget, let's change the term to create a spending plan. If you can create a spending plan, isn't that a lot more fun? And it's the same thing. How are you with every dollar that comes into your hand, you have a choice. Are you going to let that dollar just fall through your fingers, or are you going to use that dollar to buy, create, or build assets? And those assets can continue growing and feeding you in perpetuity. And so every one of us are where we are today because of the decisions we made before today. Every one of us has the opportunity to create the life we want and make different choices today going forward. And so that's my greatest piece of advice to anyone is always focus on what is it that's most appropriate for you in your life. What choices have you made? What choices can you easily tweak? Most of us kind of know what they are. And I challenge everyone on listening to this is to know that you can have the life that you deserve. Sometimes we have to change some bad habits.
Love that. And something that you also talked about as far as, expanding in terms of your opportunity to earn. So do you believe in the importance of having multiple streams of income? And I guess if you do, where do you recommend a person starts that process if they've never even considered that before?
Well, most of us, because the way we were brought up in school is that we are brought up to think that we are here to get a job and make a salary. So we're trading our time for money. So we talk about the fact that anyone of wealth has assets. People that hear me speak, I always say the sexiest word on earth is the word assets, because that's what defines financial freedom. So if you're working for a salary, that means you're exchanging your time for money. I want people to think about how can I build, create, or buy assets that will generate income for me. It's never been easier to start a business online. You can do that while you're still employed. You can start a small-time business on the side while you're still employed. And as you build that business, allow that revenue to increase to the point that it exceeds your monthly income so that you can then not hurt yourself financially by shifting to quitting your job and going to the part-time business, creating a full-time business. But again, it's not just the business, because the business, you can actually create a job for yourself. You need to build your business smart. And that's what we teach. I teach people the fundamentals. My husband and I are actually launching an online course called The Essential Components of a Successful Business. Too many people don't take the time to do the foundational work, and so they just build themselves a job. And so that is what's important. That's the difference. When you constantly exchange your time for money, it's hard to see the opportunity for great success.
So, Sharon, I would expect that you hear this from people, and so I'd love to get your thoughts on it. I'm sure there's some people that you talk to that tell you it's too late for me because I'm either this age or I've spent too long and too much. And I know, obviously, there are some situations where it just may be too late. Maybe they have 1 year left of earning potential and they're really have dug themselves a big hole. But my question out of it is, do you think some people write it off and make the excuse that it's too late long before it is? So people say, okay, there's no point in me putting money away now because I'm 45 and I never started early enough. And do you hear that often? And if you do, what do you tell people?
It's never too late. It's never too late. I have a lot of people who are going through transitions in their life right now, and those transitions, you've been in the same job for many, many years or same career, and all of a sudden you wake up and it's gone. Whether you've been downsized, right-sized, or outsized, you've got, and you've defined yourself, you've labeled yourself based on the role that you've played. But we can go back to Kentucky Fried Chicken, Colonel Sanders. He was 65 when he started that company. So there's never too late to start a business. It's never too late to learn new skills. The issue is being able to get over that fear factor. Fear is the greatest limiting factor for any of us during periods of transition. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of success. And so it's so important to face that and look into it. Read Outwitting the Devil, which Napoleon Hill wrote right after Think and Grow Rich, but it was hidden away for 73 years. It's an incredible book that will help you recognize where that fear is coming and deal with it to get rid of it.
So I guess, Sharon, one other question I wanted to ask you before I switch gears a bit, but in terms of paying yourself first, obviously you guys set up the company, even pay your family first. So can you talk to us about why it's important to pay yourself first or what that even means to you?
Absolutely. It comes back to being the CEO of your own life, and that is understanding that if you wait for the white knight, you may be waiting for a long time. You need to set up initially making those decisions where you can start saving money, building assets, creating assets. And so pay yourself first means with every dollar you get, think about how can I keep this dollar and make it work for me instead of letting it flow right through your fingers. Pay yourself first means paying attention to your own financial health.
Now, Sharon, how about, you've talked about, you guys are just ready to launch something new, and you've obviously been, heavily, you have heavy demands on your time, and you've been very busy over the years. Can you tell us what time management means to you in terms of how do you actually juggle all that?
Well, that's a great question because it's something that many of us don't do a very good job of, and certainly is something that we concentrate on every single day. One of the biggest issues, and certainly this is an issue for women, is we tend to put ourselves last, and we become very, very busy in our business, and we don't take the time to work on our business, or we think we have to do everything ourselves. And so I recommend everybody analyze how you're spending your time and then pull out something and say, maybe I should create a stop doing list. That stop doing list is very, very important because it's amazing what you can accomplish if you let other people do things that are they're just time sinks on your own ability to do what's productive. And focus on what's important for yourself and your future. Because when we talk about money, we can make money, we can lose money, we can remake it. our only precious resource is our time. And I'm sure you've heard the saying that some people going into the grave have never, in their dying bed, they never say, I wish I'd worked harder. And most of them say, I wish I'd had more time with my family, had more time to travel. So that time is such a precious resource. But the other piece of that is I want to talk about guilt, because we talk about work-life balance, and particularly women. So many women feel guilty about not achieving work-life balance, and I can't stand the term, because you're wasting precious time today if you're worried about what you did yesterday. If yesterday you didn't spend enough time with your children, then today make a decision that you're going to do something extra special with your kids. Don't spend precious time worried about it, because you'll make yourself physically sick, and you're just complicating the issue. Understand that every day is a new day. Every day you have an opportunity to make different choices to take yourself in the right direction.
So, Sharon, I'm curious your thoughts on, and of course, I'm sure this is something you've spent a lot of time on, but I'm curious your thoughts on the Think and Grow Rich for women. So, why the necessity to add in the for women? In other words, why is it necessary to talk about finances and growing rich as relates to women, in terms of how that's different from, let's say, men, or different from the original book, in terms of what's that difference in terms of the way women view money or spend or save money, and why is that necessary to even take that approach?
Well, great question, because in fact, the first line of the book, I go, why a book for women? Understand that when the original Think and Grow Rich was written, it was written by Napoleon Hill in 1937 after 25 years of research. At that time, there were no women in business. And so, rightfully so, it was all about men. And the tenets in that book are still as strong today as they were when the book was released. So what I wanted to do was say, this is as valid for women as it is for men, but let's look at these steps to success through the eyes of successful women today, so that women have an opportunity they can read the book and even relate more strongly to stories of other women. And it was just an incredible project. I loved it. It was wonderful. And the best thing about it was that I had the opportunity to highlight over 300 women of history, women today, from all walks of life, who have applied those same principles and created success in their lives. And I honored Napoleon Hill by starting off each chapter, which is the same chapter format as the original Think and Grow Rich. I honor his philosophy and share it. Then I look at that philosophy through the eyes of a couple of women who have created success using that philosophy. And then I talk about how I've applied it in my own life. And then I talk and share some quotes from other women. And then I actually talk to the most important person, and that's the woman holding the book, or the man holding the book. Men love it as well. And I say, how can you apply this? How have you already applied this principle in your life? And how can you apply it in a greater way today, tomorrow, and the next day to create the success that you so richly deserve? And I'd love to give a gift to your listeners. I have an entire book. It's actually taken from Save Wisely, Spend Happily. Happy to give it to them if they just go to SharonLechter.com/free gift. They can download.
That's awesome, Sharon. So appreciate it. And I guess the last, like I said, it was the unofficial question, but and that ties in nicely with what you just offered. Where would you send people if they want to learn more about you, connect with you, even after they've read through that book and they maybe want more? Where would you normally direct them if they wanted to connect with you a lot deeper or further? Absolutely. My website is SharonLechter.com. SHARON, my last name Lechter, LECHTER.com. I have a podcast called Your Money, Your Business, Your Life, and it's free, and you can go on. There's lots of different programs that have been pre-recorded. You can listen at your leisure and learn all kinds of additional stuff. And so I would recommend and invite you to
come to SharonLechter.com, and we have lots of blogs every month with great content. And then my podcasts are available as well for those that would rather listen to it. So thank you for asking, and I welcome everybody to join our community and continue learning with us.
Awesome stuff. Well, Sharon Lechter, this has been an absolute pleasure, which I knew it would be. So I thank you ever so much for joining us today and sharing such great insight that I know is going to impact people in such a positive way in an area that so many people struggle with. So thank you once again. I'll call it a to be continued. We may, hopefully we'll cross paths down the road again and maybe bring you back onto the show again and help you make some magic happen. But in the interim, thank you so much for being so gracious today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, and I'll look forward to the next time.
Well, we promised you details for how you can get a free copy of the brand new Enlightened book. All you have to do right now is visit thisisthebook.com. Once again, thisisthebook.com. And near the top of the page where it talks about the Enlightened book, just fill out the details, and the exclusive code that you need is Best You Ever. All spelled out, no spaces. And again, if you use the passcode Best You Ever, fill out the details, and then confirm on, check your email folders to make sure to confirm that you want to get a copy and join our newsletter tribe as well at the same time. And then your brand new free copy of Enlightened will be on its way immediately. Thank you so much, and I hope you find a way today to live with passion.
Well, that's all, folks. That's another great show with a few great concepts and ideas that might be just what you need to get your ball rolling. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'd like to thank a few people for helping make this show possible. IB Trade Show, go to ibtradeshow.com. Engaged Leadership, go to in-engaged.ca. Permadry, guaranteed solutions for leaky basements, go to permadry.com. Sites and Bytes, your site for great service, sitesandbytes.ca. Oxford Learning, never stop learning. Go to oxfordlearning.com. Smile Dog, your receptionist. Go to smiledog.ca. Thanks again for tuning in. On behalf of Corey Poirier, I am Mark O'Kelly, and this has been Conversations with Passion.